Welcome to the UST Education recorded webinar series. This session is powered by US Transactions. UST is a boutique payment processing firm providing you with personalized service. We offer agnostic, best fit technology solutions for associations, nonprofits, and enterprise clients.
All right. Well, whew, made it through that part. Welcome everyone, and thank you all so much for being here. And a tremendous thank you to Nicole and UST Education for having me. This session is the best of the best brand strategies in action, how proven frameworks unlock clarity, connection, and action. I'm Jamila Center, founder, chief strategist, and fractional CMO of Centerpoint Strategies, where I provide strategic support for associations and association adjacent firms with a focus on the intersection between organizational strategy, marketing, and communications. Today, we're going to look at a little experiment where we're going to apply four common brand messaging frameworks to three associations that are already exceptionally branded. I want to make it very clear that this session is not about critiques. It's not about extensive copywriting or placing any opinions or judgment. This session is about showcasing how these frameworks can be added to your toolbox to help you get a little more muster out of your messaging. So let's go ahead and dive in. So quick reality check here. And let me be very clear. A lot of associations are doing a lot of things right, really well, including the ones that we're looking at today. But where I see opportunity is in the ways I see the value of associations landing in a lot of critically important association copy, and in particular on the member join, member benefits pages of the association websites. And, I really think that because I see it so often, it's more of a pattern that we're looking at. It's not a failure. These are really strong organizations with real value. Um, and the opportunity really is just in how that value shows up, in how that value gets articulated. And, another reality is that today folks are just overwhelmed. We're making decisions faster, we're skimming more, we're tolerating less friction. And if it's not clear, quick, and easy, it's not happening. People just don't have the time or energy. And even with the greatest value, that can get lost or completely missed if the message isn't meeting people right where they are. So, we're gonna do an exploration. It's gonna be practical. It's gonna be focused on opportunities and things that we can do. Again, the point isn't cutting anything down. We're not trying to scramble to rewrite copy. And we're not looking for a one size fits all solution. We're just exploring some tools in the toolbox. So, frameworks, I love them. I think they're really important. They help me a lot when it comes to being able to kind of see the forest through the trees. They can really help us see what close proximity makes invisible. We're at our associations working on our subject matter every single day, and it becomes difficult to see those areas where others might get stuck or have the potential to get stuck or exhausted or uncertain or overwhelmed. And so really frameworks just create a little bit of distance from your day-to-day internal language and habits. Um, and so today we're going to look at three associations, and for each one, we're going to identify a signal that the member join page is currently sending, and then we're going to look at some frameworks that that respond to certain signals. And really, the emphasis is going to be on diagnosing or evaluating what's currently there and thinking about the tools we have in our toolbox and which tool might be best used for any situation. I consider the frameworks to be guides for our decision making. These are not templates. It's not a copy and paste exercise. Um, Frameworks just give you another lens for judgment and clarity. So for each example, we're going to look at the signal that the page is sending. Then we're going to apply a framework that best fits that signal. And then we're going to see what happens once we apply that framework. So for messaging strategies. Oh, wait. Whoops. I'm going too fast. Quick pulse check. Um, in the chat, today, are there any messaging frameworks or tools that you use today or that you've used in the past that you keep in your toolbox? What kind of frameworks or tools is anybody referring to? If you want to include that in the chat, and hopefully I can get my mouse over here and open the chat so that I can see. Does anybody have, well, any tools or frameworks that they are currently using? Oh, you're working on developing one-liners. You've considered the jobs to be done. That's great. Um, okay, so I think, frameworks maybe not be maybe not be sitting at the top of your toolbox, which I think is kind of exciting for me to kind of introduce these frameworks as you're really examining your messaging. So, key messaging points, building frameworks. Yeah, so there's a lot of frameworks that exist out here, and I was kind of a little challenged in this session because I want to introduce the framework so that I can make it make sense, but we're not going to deep dive into these frameworks. So hopefully I will provide enough to make the exercises make sense, and that you'll get some good ideas here. So let's dig in. So in order for me to do what I do, I spend a fair amount of time looking at a variety of different associations. The amount of association websites that I've looked at over the years, oh my gosh, if I had $1 for each one. Um, and, and time again, though, after looking at an association's website and branding, um, I'm led to believe that the prospective members could be experiencing some amount of confusion. They might be limited in their motivation to act. They might have a little bit of friction around making a decision. And sometimes they're just overloaded with so much information because these, associations are so full of value, but sometimes it's a lot. And so, depending on what challenge somebody is facing, um, you're going to have a different response, right? So, we're going to talk about clarity, motivation, momentum, and decision friction as being some of the key messaging challenges that I find with associations. And so, to complement or help us turn those challenges into opportunities, we have four frameworks, and it's important to understand that these frameworks, in the case of how we're going to discuss them today, these are not competing with each other. These are kind of diagnostic tools, and the key is really just to know what challenge you're solving before you reach into your toolbox for a solution. So we're going to look at StoryBrand, jobs to be done, and but therefore, and behavioral design are the four frameworks we're going to look at today. And so the first framework that we're going to look at is StoryBrand. And I think that, clarity might be the biggest communication or messaging challenge in general. And StoryBrand is one that I look to often to help clarify whatever it is I'm trying to say. Oftentimes, it's because I'm trying to pack in way too much information. Um, and so the story brand helps me unpack that and repackage it in a way that hopefully makes more sense. So if you're not familiar with story brand, that is a framework that mirrors the traditional hero's journey, which in essence involves a hero who's your customer, the villain, which is the problem that they have, the guide, which is your brand, the plan, which is your solution, the quest, which is your call to action, the stakes, avoiding failure, and the transformation, success. So when you think about a great story and the components of it, these are pretty much them. So the hero, the customer, that's the protagonist, not the brand. And that's key. And hold on, if you hold on to one thing, hold on to the hero, your customer, not your brand. The problem, the hero often has a problem, some sort of internal struggle, that they're trying to solve. The guide is your brand. Your brand acts like the mentor. Think Yoda from Star Wars or Gandalf, who understands the hero's struggle and has a plan. And the plan itself, that's your solutions, that's your resources, that's what you offer. The guide gives the hero a simple, actionable plan to overcome the obstacle. The quest, the journey, that's your call to action. The hero is challenged to act, such as buying a product to solve their problem. The stakes are avoiding failure. The narrative should highlight what the hero stands to lose if they don't act. And then success is the transformation. The story concludes with the hero's transformation after achieving a better life. So, story brand in a business context is going to help connect emotionally with the audience by focusing on the customer's desires, struggle, and journey, as opposed to just listing product features. And so, this approach helps to ensure that the brand positions itself as a partner in the customer's success rather than the hero itself. So let's take a look at the next one. Next is jobs to be done. And so jobs to be done helps when people understand the offer, but they're not emotionally compelled to act. It shifts the focus from features to the progress someone is trying to make. So think of it as the job that your association is being hired to do. And your web page is kind of like the interview. So using the jobs to be done framework helps create a foundation for categorizing, defining, capturing, and organizing all of your customers' needs and aligning your value creation and articulation around those needs. And so really actually the jobs to be done framework is very often applied in the context of innovation or product development given its deep examination of needs. And so, though within the context of communications and marketing, we're looking at jobs to be done through the lens of making sure that your association is clearly defining the job that someone is going to hire to do. Focus on the customer's desired outcome rather than just the product features. And so, you can use a formula like when I, think about my career, I want to have an impactful network of leaders and experts so that I can grow faster in my career. Um, Also, you want to identify motivation. So determine, why is a customer switching or making a change or coming to you in the first place? Think about those push and those pull factors that might be going on for them. And then when in your communications, in the jobs to be done, you're going to really want to align your messaging to directly address the struggles or pain points that prevent the customer from achieving their goal. So that's the jobs to be done. Basically, really simple. What is someone hiring your association to do? And then, last but not least, we have kind of the final two. I will get into why these two are being presented together. But basically, the first framework that we'll look at with our last organization is and, but, therefore. But, therefore, and behavioral design are both useful when people are interested but perhaps stuck. And so this is where decisions might slow down even if the value is high. And but therefore is good at replacing the and then, and then, and then, the ongoing lists of facts and features with agreement, which is the and, contradiction, which is the but, and therefore, which is the consequence, the solution, or the resolution. So you have your and agreement to set the stage, provide context, and establish the initial state of affairs. But is the contradiction. It introduces a problem, a conflict, or a twist that disrupts the status quo and creates some amount of tension. And therefore, which is the consequence, offers the resolution or the action taken due to the conflict to move forward. Okay, so that's kind of the first part. We're also going to dip our toe into behavioral design. And specifically, we're going to focus on the idea of nudge theory and choice architecture. With nudge theory, we'll see how we can structure the environment to gently influence choices without restricting the freedom of choice. And we're also going to look at the choice architecture, which has to do with how to situate or organize the context in which people make the decisions in order to influence the outcome of that decision. So what that starts to look like, we're gonna dig right in now. So, into our examples. And a little bit about each of these subjects for today. As I was thinking about this session, I knew that I wanted to examine these frameworks. And I knew that I wanted to have some real examples, but I was struggling to find, which examples to use. And then I decided to just use my own world and my own life. Um, and I picked associations that I could feasibly consider myself to be a prospective member. And the fact is, I have been a member of two of the three associations listed on the page. The only one that I've not yet been a member of is the International Association of Business Communicators. So just a little context. And you may be wondering at this point, why these? Why look at organizations from within the same discipline? And it really sunk in for me once I went to the member join pages of each of these websites. I decided that I needed to do this because oftentimes with similar offerings, it's the message, it's the storytelling that really becomes the differentiator. And so, I'm not gonna flip open to their web pages and we're not gonna, go into that level of detail. But, you are welcome to, if you've got a separate monitor or something, you want to open up these three pages and look at their membership pages and read them. That'll probably help you get some more context into the session after the fact. So, okay. And then just another side note, every single framework makes trade-offs on purpose, right? They're not a one end all be all answer. These are exercises, not rewrites. And I'm not saying that anything is necessarily wrong, but these are frameworks. You still have to do the work, okay? And also, sometimes clarity will only come at the cost of completeness. So think about that too, as we are going through these things. All right. So, the Public Relations Society of America and StoryBrand, The Hero's Journey. This is a well-established organization with strong credibility, a broad audience, a lot of value is packed into their membership, and this is one where I have been a member. And so we are going to just look, like I said, at the um, main web page. So for the purpose of this, I just screen grabbed and split the page in two. So the right side is the bottom half. You can see this smarter. I don't know. Can you see my mouse moving on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Um, So smarter continues, and that'll be the top of, it just scrolls on. Um, for the purpose of this exercise, where we are going to focus is just on this block of copy here, as well as this very nice headline, subheadline that's down here. Um, And the signal on this page, we talked about signals. It's not really a lack of relevance. It's not really a lack of motivation. What's signaling here for me is clarity. What exactly is this association doing, I guess, is what I start thinking about. So let's just dive in here. I'm just going to read that little top block out loud. It's only two sentences. PRSA connects you to a network of communications professionals through local and regional communities, premium events, and industry-specific groups. Members receive access to a suite of tools that foster professional development and enhance career growth. PRSA helps you become smarter, better prepared, and more connected. There's nothing wrong with this language. It explains what PRSA does, lists the right categories, reflects the organization accurately, but it's doing all of this from PRSA's perspective first, rather than the members. And that is the signal that StoryBrand responds to. So let's take a look at this rewrite using the StoryBrand framework and see what we think. Um, as a communications professional, staying current and credible matters. As a PRSA member, you can strengthen your practice through a trusted professional community and practical tools that support career growth at every stage. You'll be prepared to advance and adapt with confidence. So, in this rewrite, the structure shifts. The member becomes the main character immediately. The problem that they're facing is named early, and PRSA is the guide, not the hero. Nothing new was added. The value didn't change. The story just became clearer. So, um, this works. And so this is the original on the left, and how I did the rewrite on the right with StoryBrand. And so this works because StoryBrand is solving the right problem for this little block of copy. It wasn't a motivation issue, it wasn't a decision overload issue. It was about helping someone quickly understand, is this for me? And how does this help me move forward? And I see the chat about the quest. And so one thing I didn't include is where there were buttons and calls to action to join now. So because this is a web page, I think that some of the quests and the calls to action would be like in those buttons, and I didn't unpack that, but you are absolutely correct, Kenneth, in that observation. And if we were doing uh sorry, Barbara, you're making me laugh. Um if we were, digging in and doing a rewrite, we would be looking for those things, and also in a longer format where we could get more into a story. I think we would incorporate a few more elements, but trying to keep this very concise. And actually, the plus 29 characters, including spaces, didn't include this headline. So if you include that sub headline from the original, I'm guessing they're probably close to the same. All right, so far, we've digging in here. Now that we've completed our first real exercise, real quick in the chat, do you think you would have an opportunity to experiment with StoryBrand in your own messaging? And if so, if you want to go back and experiment with it, um, where do you think you might start to apply it? If you could respond in the chat, or if anyone raises their hand, hopefully Nicole can see and can help. Oh yeah, the book. Yeah, there's actually a story brand certification that I've been looking at. I really love it. Oh yeah, lots of websites being revamped. So one thing, as you are revamping any of your messages, particularly related to recruitment or membership, I would really encourage you to look at other players in your space. And particularly look at those member join member benefits pages, because as we continue this exercise, there's some things that came out, that showed up unexpectedly as I was doing this. Surely if I were doing something like a competitive analysis, those things would have been more obvious. But anyway, gonna keep moving. These are some great ideas. And yes, that member join place is often a great place to start in articulating value. So that was a big one. I think the next ones are going to go a little bit faster, but wanted to get you thinking through, looking at a page, what is it signaling? Where are the opportunities here? And then, don't try to rewrite the whole entire page at once. Take a little section, take an important section, and think about that framework. So, moving on. Jobs to be done. Um, you know, when you're thinking about what someone hires your association to do, first of all, I want you to focus on your most ideal member, and im- the biggest, most pressing job that your association can do for that individual. Now, I know every association has many customer types and many personas and all of that, but ideally, you have identified your ideal customer, your ideal member, and when you're thinking about what they are hiring your association to do, the most pressing job, um, that's kind of the lens here. And then keeping in mind, people aren't focused, people don't have lots of time, and they've got countless distractions at any given moment. So, here we are looking at the International Association of Business Communicators, and we're here on their membership page. So they've got a headline, the community and insights you need to advance your career. For the purpose of our exercise, I am skipping this kind of administrative couple of sentences in this button, and I'm just pretending that that doesn't exist, and we're going to be focused on this introductory paragraph. Just to let you know, this is again scrolling down the page, and then it goes on, more stuff down the way. So, as we start to hone in on that, the community and insights you need to advance your career. Whether you're looking to connect with fellow global communications professionals, access educational resources to further your career, gain distinction through GCCC certification programs, or simply stay on top of the latest news in the global communication industry, IABC membership is here for you. IABC's unique tiered membership structure allows you to take advantage of the resources you need no matter what your career goals are. So, I would say that um, there's a different signal here, and people visiting this page, I think, generally understand what IBC is, and so the question isn't what do you do? The question becomes, why does this matter for me right now? That's a motivation signal, I think. And I think that the headline gives us a strong clue that this organization is putting career advancement front and center. So with that in mind, okay, cool. Let's work with it. So I worked on a reframing here. And this reframing is I kept the same headline. The community and insights you need to advance your career. Being seen as a strategic communicator matters more now than ever. As an IABC member, you build the skills, perspective, and confidence needed to lead and influence at a higher level. That growth is supported by a global professional community and targeted learning aligned to your next step. The result is forward momentum, stronger credibility, and a clearer career path ahead. And so, as we look at why jobs to be done works well here, we didn't have exactly a clarity problem. It was just tapping into the now moment because there were so many statements going on and so much value being presented, that, it was a momentum and how do I keep going? And so this is really what jobs to be done does well. And so these are the two side by side. I don't think I remember to do a character count for this one. But you can see here that we've clearly stated the job to be done in the context of, that focused member and what IABC does the best. Next, we're gonna move on to the last association, which is the American Marketing Association, where I also have been a member many times and many years. And we're gonna look at two different frameworks here. And but therefore is one framework, and behavioral design is another framework. And I wanted to kind of do these together to, hone in and really make sure that you understand that one of these frameworks I don't think is going to answer all of your challenges. You really need to take it kind of message by message and what each part of your communication is being intended to accomplish, and then think about what signals your current copy has, and then think about your toolbox of these frameworks and which one to apply. So, for the American Marketing Association, we're going to use two. So, the top page, we're going to focus on and but therefore for decision readiness. And the bottom part of the page, we're going to focus on behavioral design because what we're facing there is choice overload. So, let's take a look. So, with the American Marketing Association, I will also say that all of their membership stuff is one page and just one page, and it's one page alone. So, all of their membership information just scrolls and scrolls and scrolls. This is the top part of the scrolling page. Um, This blue section here actually is like the home page slider, but this copy stays static, and the images of the people and whatever they're showing in the background is what changes. So I did choose this copy because it's static copy on this membership page. And then there was like some social proof, some evidence and stats mixed in there. And then this is basically the next block of copy with a subhead and more copy. And then I think there's like join buttons, and there was like a picture of some people, whatever. I just cut it out because not really germane. So honing in though on this top copy here, where am I pointing? Um, so at the top of the AMA page, what somebody is thinking about is this relevant to me? Is this worth my time? And should I keep reading? And so, with what they have here, whether you're just starting out as an experience or you're an experienced marketer, the AMA provides the resources, community, and expertise you need to advance your career. Interesting statement. Fuel your success with the world's largest marketing community. Stay ahead, join our community, and so on and so forth. So, you know, I just think it's what has this copy done to make it relevant to an individual and to motivate them to keep reading. So, and but therefore will is going to help us structure this by establishing context, naming the tension that someone is already feeling, and pointing us toward a clear reason to continue. So we're not trying to add urgency, we're not trying to add hype, we're just trying to make someone feel comfortable in a decision to keep going. And so I felt like this actually didn't need to be two sections. I thought that it could be one section, and possibly this white part here, this headline, could just be at the top, and then this could be the first block of copy. Fuel your success with the world's largest marketing community. Marketing careers today are more complex than ever, with higher expectations, faster change, and greater pressure to demonstrate impact and ROI. But when there are countless ways to learn, connect, and grow, it can be difficult to know where to focus first. That's where AMA comes in. By helping you focus on the skills, connections, and credibility that matter most right now, AMA helps you move forward with confidence instead of hesitation. So, and but therefore is working in this because it's mirroring how people are already thinking. So we started this rewrite by acknowledging reality. Complex marketing careers are more complex, expectations are higher, pressure is real. And then we name the tension. There's so many ways to learn. There's so many places you could be to connect and grow. And so That actually makes it harder to know where to focus first. And then we introduce AMA. And not as a list of benefits, but as a way to regain your focus and move forward with confidence. So, you know, that's kind of just an example of using very explicitly and, but, therefore, um, in your messaging to help with the motivation and keep people going. And once we fix this part at the top of the page, folks keep scrolling. And so next we saw this what you'll gain in these four sections as part of the first example. But right below these four sections is this section where it is explore all member benefits. And then that each one of these is a tabbed page that opens up to a separate page. And I will tell you that I got to this section and I was like, oh crap. Like, do I really have to look at all of those pages? I don't want to. I'm tired and it feels like a lot. And I didn't want to. But, I sort of did. So moving on to behavioral design here, this is really again about providing that contextual environment to help people make easier decisions. So, previously, wait, let me go back 1 second. This statement, what you gain with AMA, and then the next part below it, explore all membership benefits. And that's where I got tired. Um, but the very next revision here is behavioral design. So, what would happen if we created a starting point that said, what would you like to do now? And then gave people just three simple choices focused on where they are most likely to be in the moment. And then all of these individual items could be parsed out under whichever area they fit. So this creates a starting point and it makes choosing easier because under each of these categories, you would probably have a couple, two, three, four choices instead of 10 or 12 or however many choices there are here. So, that is really just a tiny glimpse into behavioral design where you're really kind of taking the same information, but you're thinking about how can I organize this information to make it as easy as possible for people to make a decision on what to do next. Okay. Um, so there, that is that. Um, and so now we're going to talk about, kind of making it happen with AI as the accelerator. And, AI can really help you in applying any of these frameworks and about a bajillion others that are out there faster and more consistently if and only if you know what signal you're responding to. And AI is not the strategy. It's another tool in this same toolbox. So it's excellent at pattern recognition. It's super fast at generating options for you, but it doesn't necessarily know which problem you're solving. It doesn't necessarily know where you need extra help and support. So you really have to be incredibly intentional about direction and frameworks to give your AI. So if you signal, if what you're seeing is signaling for you confusion, then you might want to try the StoryBrand framework. Um, And you'll want to talk to your AI tool about clarity and simplification while applying the story brand framework. And I would say that um, low motivation framework, jobs to be done. This is going to help you reframe with a focus on the value, the core value of your association. And then decision friction, and but therefore, and behavioral design, that's orientation and sequencing. But it's really important that you that you communicate to your AI what you've noticed in the first place, and then you can ask it at that time to apply three different frameworks and to give you examples. But I will tell you, it was a lot of work. Let me just put it that way. I definitely used AI to develop my rewrites and all of that, but absolutely none of it was copy paste. Absolutely none of it was me, taking what AI gave me at first and plopping it in here because it just, it didn't make sense. It didn't fully understand the context. It might not have it was a lot of things, right? It's just like using AI for anything. You really have to have, I think, a clear understanding of what it is you're trying to get out of something, before you try to leverage AI to do that. Now, where AI can be amazing is multiple variations, testing the tone and the emphasis against your own brand voice and tone, translating from a framework into usable language, and then exploring alternatives without starting from scratch. So, I want to say it was in the PRSA example, when I first was using AI, I was getting some great uh responses, but they were really long. Like double. Like AI, we don't have, I mean, I guess on a web page you kind of do, but yeah, nobody wants to read all of those words. So I had to remind my AI tool, TLDR, too long didn't read. Like we got to tighten this up. I want to, less than 10% increase in the amount of characters um in your response. So even that specific, how much more can you expand? But it is super helpful, I will tell you that. And it is actually helpful for even learning more about each of these tools, and it can direct you to more places to learn more about it. So I had actually thought about supplying you with some resources, but then I was like, no, I think everyone can utilize their AI companion to find places where they'd like to learn more about any or all of these frameworks. Okay, I think I did these slides. I talked about these backwards. Sorry. I'm only half paying attention to my slides. Yeah, what AI can't do for you though, and keep this in mind, right? It cannot decide which framework applies. It cannot understand your organizational nuances. It cannot know about political or cultural context. So for example, going back to PRSA again, in communications professional, things that are happening today are not necessarily the same challenges a communications professional may have faced like a year or so ago. Oops. Um, and then again, recognizing when something is not necessarily wrong, but is just not quite right. Like some of the sentences were just very long and, just not great. So just be very careful and intentional about reviewing any output from your AI. So, couple of just pieces of advice in applying this to your association, where I would say start with the problem and not the whole page. So that means like find small, oh my goodness. Did my screen just go off?
Yeah, your screen share quit.
I don't know what just happened. Yeah, my all my screens just went black. So,
Oh no.
um, um, yeah, well, um, we're almost to the end. I'll just talk about what my screens were going to show because I have no idea what just happened. Um, so applying this to your association, um, I would say start with the problem in a small section and don't try to think about a whole entire page worth of copy. So if you have like your benefits section, start with that and identify perhaps a problem with that section. And if you're talking about your community or something, do that section. Um, it's definitely important to start very small and stay very intentional. One problem at a time, one framework at a time. And so I think that's where I was going to open it up for questions. And let's see, I'm gonna just review in the chat a little bit here. Uh, Oh no, let's just use our own beautiful brains. Oh, is that about leveraging AI? Yeah, I think your brain definitely has to be highly activated. Teresa, this is in response to your comment. Um, you definitely have to have brains on to do this work. For sure. AI is helpful, but it was doing some funky things for sure. Um Yes, ChatGPT will absolutely change names, come up with new people, come up with things. I was like, this doesn't even make sense. I ask it like, are you on something today? What's going on? You seem very confused. So yeah, you gotta be on it with your ChatGPT use. Any other questions? Let's see, Barbara. If we have member personas, can we use them to inform our AI queries? Absolutely. I think that you should inform your AI with as much information that's relevant as you can. One thing that I would suggest when you are informing your AI is to be explicit about when you attach files and you want it to review as to why you are giving it that piece of information. Because I found that sometimes just in uploading a bunch of things and like learn this, it can misinterpret what I wanted it to understand about a certain thing. So if you're uploading a persona, say, upload it, but give it context around what you want it to do with it. Um, and yes, with anything, yes, 100% review, 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 review. Any other questions? All right. Well, I thank you all so much for being here, and I'm gonna kick it back over to Nicole to wrap things up. But I really appreciate your time. Would love to have any feedback. And thank you.
Thank you so much, Jamila.